Captain Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching stars drift past through the main screen. His ship was the biggest in humanity's first deep space fleet. They had been traveling for 3 months, exploring systems far from Earth. The mission was simple: find new worlds and avoid contact with alien life until humanity was ready. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of engines. Chief Engineer Bo-Ra worked at her station, checking power levels. Tactical Officer Jae-min monitored weapons systems that they hoped never to use. Communications Specialist Da-eun listened to empty space, searching for any signs of intelligent life. Hyun-woo had served in Earth's Navy for 15 years before joining the space program. He knew how to keep a crew calm during long missions. His people trusted him, and he took that responsibility seriously. The weight of representing all humanity in the void made every decision important. "Captain," Da-eun called out suddenly. "I'm picking up something strange." Hyun-woo moved to her station. "What kind of something?" "It's a transmission. Definitely artificial. The pattern suggests it's a distress call." Da-eun's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "The signal is coming from the edge of this system. Can you decode it?" "Working on it now." Da-eun frowned at her screen. "The mathematics are familiar, but the language is completely unknown. Wait, I think I'm getting somewhere." The bridge fell silent as everyone waited. First contact with alien life was something every human had dreamed about, but finding aliens in distress was not how anyone had imagined it would happen. "Got it," Da-eun said. "The computer has found patterns in the transmission. It's definitely a distress call. They're saying their ship is damaged and they need help. They mentioned something called the Krex Empire. And Captain..." They sound desperate. Hyun-woo felt his stomach tighten. Protocol was clear: avoid contact with alien species. Earth's location must remain secret until humanity was strong enough to defend itself. But someone was dying out there. "Can you tell where the signal is coming from?" "Yes, sir. A large ship moving slowly toward the outer planets. They're on emergency power only." Jae-min spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting other ships in the system. Much smaller, but moving fast toward the distress signal." "Are they responding to help?" "I don't think so. Their approach pattern looks more like hunters closing in on prey." Hyun-woo closed his eyes for a moment. Every captain feared this moment, when the right choice and the safe choice were different things. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people counting on his mission to succeed. Then he thought about the voices, calling for help in the darkness of space. "Da-eun, try to contact the ship sending the distress call." "Jae-min, I want full scans of those other vessels." "Bo-Ra, how fast can we get to their location?" Bo-Ra checked her readings. "At maximum speed, 40 minutes. But Captain, if we go that fast, any ship in the system will detect us. And if we don't go, whoever sent that distress call might be dead in 40 minutes. Hyun-woo moved to the center of the bridge. "All hands. This is the captain. We have detected aliens in distress. I know our orders are to avoid contact, but I will not let innocents die while we hide in the dark. Prepare for maximum speed." The ship began to accelerate. Hyun-woo could feel the increased gravity as the engines pushed them faster than normal. Around him, his crew worked with the efficiency that made him proud to be human. "Captain," Da-eun said, "I've made contact with the alien ship. They call themselves the Veltari. They say they're the last survivors of their species. The Krex Empire destroyed their homeworld. What do they want from us?" "Safe passage to anywhere the Krex cannot follow. They don't care where, as long as their people survive." Jae-min looked up from his station. "Captain, I've analyzed the approaching ships. They're definitely warships. Heavy weapons, military, configuration, and they'll reach the alien vessel 20 minutes before we do." Hyun-woo studied the tactical display. The alien refugee ship was huge, but slow. The enemy warships were fast and well-armed. His own fleet was designed for exploration, not warfare. But human ships had advantages that alien vessels might not expect. "Signal the rest of our fleet. Tell them to converge on these coordinates, and tell them to prepare for combat." "Sir," Jae-min said carefully, "we don't know anything about alien weapons or tactics. This could be a disaster." "Maybe. But we know about human tactics. And we know that bullies are the same everywhere in the universe." Hyun-woo sat in his command chair. Dayun, send a message to the Veltari ship. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on just a little longer. As the Indomitable raced through space, other human ships moved to join them. The destroyer Resilient, commanded by Captain Sung Min. The cruiser Defiant under Captain Young Hee. The assault ship Courage with Captain Jin Woo at the helm. Together, they represented humanity's first step into a larger universe. Captain, Dayun reported, the Veltari are asking who we are. They want to know what species would risk themselves for strangers. Hyun-woo thought about how to answer. How did you explain humanity to aliens? How did you describe a species that had fought its way up from a dangerous world, that had learned to help each other survive against impossible odds? Tell them we're humans. Tell them we come from a world that tried to kill us every day. So we learned that life is precious. Tell them that where we come from, the strong protect the weak. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They all knew what this moment meant. Humanity was about to reveal itself to the galaxy. There would be no going back after this. Approaching the target area, Bo-Ra announced. The enemy ships have just opened fire on the refugee vessel. Through the main screen, they could see flashes of light in the distance. Weapons fire. People dying. All ships, this is Captain Hyun-woo. We go in fast and hard. Protect the refugee ship at all costs. Show these creks what happens when they pick on someone smaller than them. The human fleet dropped out of faster than light, travel right into the middle of the battle. The crek ships turned toward them, probably expecting easy victims. They had no idea what they were about to face. Hyun-woo smiled grimly as his ship's weapons came online. The Krek's empire was about to learn something new about the universe. They were about to learn about humans. All ships, engage the enemy. Let's give these refugees a chance to live. The battle for the Veltari began, and with it, humanity's entrance onto the galactic stage. In the depths of space, a captain's choice to do the right thing was about to change everything. The human fleet burst into the battle zone like lightning. The Krek's destroyers had been slowly circling the massive Veltari ship called Sanctuary, taking their time to destroy it piece by piece. They enjoyed making their victims suffer before. The final blow. Pilot Tae-hyung was the first to engage. His fighter screamed past a Krek's destroyer, weapons blazing. The alien ship tried to turn and follow, but Tae-hyung was already gone, dancing through space in patterns that seemed impossible. His ship twisted and spun through weapon fire like it was a game. These aliens are slow, Tae-hyung reported over the radio. Their ships turn like rocks in mud. Captain Hyun-woo watched the battle from the Indomitable's bridge. The Krek's ships were powerful, but they moved like they expected their enemies to fight in neat, organized formations. Human pilots didn't believe in fighting fair. Navigator So Young, plot us a course through that asteroid field. We're going to give the Sanctuary some cover. So Young's fingers flew over her controls. Captain, that field is deadly. The radiation levels alone would cook most ship crews. And the gravitational stress from all those spinning rocks would tear a normal hull apart. Good thing we're not normal. Hyun-woo smiled. Take us in. The Indomitable plunged into the asteroid field like a whale diving into an ocean. Rocks the size of buildings spun past the bridge windows. Radiation alarms screamed warnings that the crew ignored. This was exactly the kind of environment that had taught humans to be survivors. On the Veltari ship Sanctuary, Elder Nimra watched the human vessels with amazement. The strange ships moved through the deadly asteroid field like they belonged. There, her people's sensors could barely track them through all the interference. How are they doing that? Asked the ship's pilot. Those radiation levels should have killed their crews by now. Nimra had no answer. In all her years studying galactic species, she had never seen anything like this. Ships flying through environments that should be impossible to survive. Battle turned quickly. The Krek's destroyers found themselves facing enemies who refused to follow any sensible combat rules. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, fired at point-blank range, then vanished back into the rocky maze. The Krek's couldn't understand how the human crews stayed conscious through such violent maneuvers. Commander Thex Ka, leading the Krek's attack, tried to restore order to his formation. All ships, pull back from the asteroid field. We'll force them to come to us. But the humans weren't interested in fair fights. Captain Jin Woo brought his assault ship Courage roaring out of the asteroids at an angle that should have liquefied. his crew from the G-forces. His ship slammed into the side of a Krex destroyer before the aliens could react. "Boarding party away," Jinwoo announced calmly, as if ramming enemy ships was something he did every day. The Krex crew couldn't believe what was happening. Enemy soldiers were cutting through their hull in a radiation-soaked battle zone. Any sane species would have retreated to a safe distance before attempting such a maneuver. As the battle raged, engineer Dong Hwan was working on the sanctuary itself. The Veltari ship's engines were failing, and they needed immediate repairs. The problem was that the damaged sections were exposed to vacuum. "I'll need to work outside the ship," Dong Hwan told the Veltari engineers through the translator. "Impossible," they replied. "The radiation from the battle will kill you in minutes, and there's no atmosphere." Dong Hwan just smiled and put on his basic emergency suit. To the amazement of the aliens, he stepped out into space and began working on their engines with his bare hands. The Veltari watched in shock as he held his breath and removed his helmet to get a better view of the damaged components. "He's working in vacuum without full protection," whispered one of the alien engineers. "How is he still alive?" Inside the sanctuary's medical bay, Dr. Hyojin was treating wounded Veltari with whatever supplies she could find. The alien's biology was completely different from humans, but she improvised treatments that somehow worked. She used human medical techniques that should have been useless on alien physiology. "Your healing methods are impossible," said the Veltari doctor. "Those chemicals should not work on our biology." "Maybe," Hyojin said, bandaging another patient. "But they do work. Sometimes the impossible is just another word for something we haven't figured out yet." The Krex fleet was falling apart. Their ships weren't designed to fight enemies who treated deadly environments like minor inconveniences. Thexka watched his destroyers get picked off one by humans who fought like the very concept of fear didn't exist. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships, retreat immediately." As the Krex ships fled, the human fleet emerged from the asteroid field. The sanctuary was safe, its engines repaired by an engineer who thought working in vacuum was just part of the job. Elder Nimra requested permission to come aboard the human flagship. When she arrived on the Indomitable, she found herself face to face with creatures that looked fragile but clearly weren't. "I am Captain Hyunwoo," the human leader said through a translator device. "Welcome aboard our ship." Nimra studied the human captain. He looked young by her species standards, but his eyes held the confidence of someone who had faced death many times. Around him, his crew worked with casual efficiency in an environment that would stress most galactic species. "You saved us," she said simply. "But I must ask, what species are you? In all the galactic databases, there is no record of beings like you." Hyunwoo exchanged glances with his crew. "We call ourselves humans. We're from a planet called Earth, and we've been keeping to ourselves until now. Your planet must be very peaceful to produce such brave warriors." At this, several humans actually laughed. Medical Officer Ye Jin stepped forward. "Elder Nimra, our planet isn't peaceful at all. It's probably the most dangerous world you could imagine. We had to become tough just to survive childhood." Nimra's translator struggled with the concept. "Dangerous? How dangerous?" "Our planet tries to kill us with weather, earthquakes, volcanoes, diseases, and predators," Ye Jin explained. "We've been fighting to survive since our species began. It's made us very good at staying alive in places where we probably shouldn't." The Veltari elder looked around the human bridge with new understanding. These beings had evolved on a world so harsh that vacuum and radiation were just minor problems to them. No wonder they had rescued her people from situations that would terrify most galactic species. "The Krex Empire has conquered dozens of systems," she said. "They destroy anyone who resists them. You've made powerful enemies today." Captain Hyunwoo shrugged. "We've had powerful enemies before. Usually they underestimate us until it's too late." As the human fleet prepared to escort the sanctuary to safety, none of them realized how this single act of kindness would change the galaxy. The Krex Empire would not forget this humiliation, and word would spread through the underground networks of oppressed species that somewhere in the void there were warriors who fought for others without asking for anything in return. The age of human isolation was over, The age of the Deathworlders had begun. The Veltari refugees had been aboard human ships for 3 days now, and Elder Nimra was still trying to understand what she was seeing. These beings called humans seemed to treat impossible things as normal daily activities. Cultural Specialist. Minho sat with Nimra in the Indomitable's main meeting room. Between them, holographic displays showed star charts and data about the galactic political situation. The news was worse than humanity had imagined. "Tell me about this Krex Empire," Minho said, taking notes on his tablet. Nimra's long fingers moved over the display controls. "They began expanding 50 years ago. Every species they encounter faces the same choice: submit completely or be destroyed. Most choose submission. And those who resist? Dead. All of them." Nimra's voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too much death. "The Krex are efficient killers. They have conquered over 60 star systems." Minho studied the galactic map. Red zones marked Krex territory, spreading like an infection across space. "How is that possible? Surely someone has been able to stop them." "You must understand something about galactic civilization," Nimra said. "Most species evolve on what we call garden worlds. Stable climates, gentle weather, abundant resources. We never had to become warriors to survive." "What about your military forces?" "We have them, of course. But warfare for us is a formal affair. Ships fight at long range. Soldiers wear full environmental protection. Battles are fought in safe, controlled conditions." Nimra paused. "The Krex are different. They enjoy violence, and they're very good at it." Minho frowned. "But surely someone has technological advantages." Nimra activated another display showing the galactic classification system. "This is how we rate planetary environments. Class 1 worlds are perfect. No dangerous weather, no natural disasters, abundant food. Most sapient species come from Class 1 through 3 worlds." The display showed a scale from 1 to 12, with descriptions of each class. Class 12 worlds were listed as completely uninhabitable, no known life possible. "What class is your homeworld?" Minho asked. "Class 2. Very pleasant. Stable seasons, gentle rains, no predators larger than small insects." Nimra looked sad. "Was Class 2. The Krex poisoned our atmosphere. Nothing lives there now." Minho activated his own tablet and pulled up Earth's environmental data. He stared at it for a long moment, then double-checked the numbers. "Nimra, according to your classification system, what class would you say Earth is?" The Veltari elder took the tablet and began reading. Her large eyes grew wider as she scrolled through the data. "Weather systems that could level cities. Earthquakes that could split continents. Volcanoes that could change global climate. Predators that could kill humans in dozens of different ways." "This must be an error," she said finally. "No sapient species could evolve on a world like this. According to our science, this planet would rate as Class 15 or higher. That's impossible. Nothing lives on worlds above Class 12. And yet, here, we are." Minho smiled. 8 billion of us, actually." Before Nimra could respond, alarms began ringing through the ship. Both human and alien rushed to the bridge, where they found the crew gathered around Security Chief Wu Jin. "What's the emergency?" Minho asked. Captain Hyunwoo looked embarrassed. "Not an emergency exactly, more like a cultural misunderstanding." Wu Jin was standing next to what had once been a combat training robot. Now it was a pile of twisted metal and sparking electronics. Several Veltari refugees stood nearby, looking shocked. "The aliens wanted to see a human combat demonstration," Wu Jin explained. "I was being gentle, but apparently their training equipment isn't built for our strength levels." Dr. Ye Jin arrived with her medical kit. "Is anyone hurt?" "Just their feelings," Wu Jin said. "And their robot." One of the Veltari engineers approached cautiously. "Excuse me, but how did you do that? Our combat robots are designed to withstand weapons fire. You destroyed it with your bare hands." "I wasn't trying to destroy it," Wu Jin protested. "I was holding back. A lot." Nimra studied the wreckage, then looked at Wu Jin with new understanding. "You were holding back?" "Of course. I didn't want to break their equipment." Wu Jin paused. "Well, I didn't want to break it this badly. Dr. Ye-jin pulled out her medical scanner and ran it over Wu Jin. Muscle density 300% above galactic average. Bone strength 400% above average. Reaction time. She paused and recalibrated the scanner. The scanner can't keep up with his reflexes. But he's just a normal human, Minho said. That's what's frightening, Nimra whispered. Over the following hours, more demonstrations followed. Engineer Kyung-soo repaired damaged equipment by hand, bending metal components back into shape with casual ease. Pilot Subin flew training simulations that registered as impossible on Veltari computers. No living being should be able to survive the G-forces involved. The breaking point came when the Veltari asked about human entertainment. Communications. Officer Jinnah showed them recordings of human sports. This is football, she explained, showing footage of players colliding at high speed. And this is boxing, where humans hit each other for fun. This is ice hockey. It's like football but faster and with sticks. The aliens watched in horror as humans deliberately injured each other for entertainment, then got up and continued. Playing. Do humans not feel pain? Asked one young Veltari. Oh, we feel it, Jinnah said. We just don't let it stop us from doing things. Nimra sat in stunned silence as more footage played. Humans climbing mountains in freezing weather. Humans diving into deep oceans. Humans running races across burning deserts. All for fun. Your species does these things voluntarily? She asked. We call it adventure, Jinnah said. Life's more interesting when it's challenging. That evening, Nimra called a meeting of all, the Veltari refugees. They gathered in the ship's cargo bay, whispering among themselves about what they had seen. Friends, Nimra said, I believe we have been rescued by something unprecedented in galactic history. These humans come from a world so dangerous that it would kill any of us in hours. They have evolved to treat deadly situations as normal challenges. What does that mean for us? Asked a young refugee. It means, Nimra said slowly, that for the first time since the Kreks began their expansion, there is a species in the galaxy that might actually be able to stop them. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Captain Hyun-woo was reading reports from his intelligence officers. The Kreks Empire was already investigating the attack that had freed the Veltari. Ships were moving along the border, searching for any sign of the mysterious rescuers. They'll find us eventually, Tactical Officer Jae-min said. What do we do then? Hyun-woo thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of fighting impossible odds, about people who faced tigers and hurricanes and volcanic eruptions, and, somehow, found ways to survive and thrive. Then we show them what Deathworlders can do when we're properly motivated, he said. In her quarters, Nimra was composing a message to be sent through the underground networks that connected oppressed peoples across the galaxy. The message was simple but revolutionary. Hope has arrived. The Deathworlders have joined the fight. The galaxy was about to learn that evolution had produced something new, a species that considered warfare just another survival challenge. And humans had been practicing survival for their entire existence. Admiral Vex To commanded the largest Kreks battle fleet ever assembled. 300 warships moved in perfect formation through space, their hulls dark against the stars. The Admiral had built his reputation on crushing rebellions quickly and completely. This new threat would be no different. Report, Vex To demanded as he entered the command center of his flagship. Commander Thex Ka, who had survived the encounter with the humans, stood at attention. Admiral, we have traced the unknown ships to the edge of this sector. Our scouts report detecting artificial signals from several nearby systems. And what do these signals tell us about our new enemies? Very little, sir. Their technology is unfamiliar. Their tactics are unusual. Vex To studied the tactical displays. The Kreks Empire had conquered dozens of species using the same methods. Overwhelming firepower, superior numbers, and the knowledge that most civilized species would surrender rather than face total destruction. Unusual how? Thex Ka hesitated. They fight in environments that should kill them, Admiral. They use maneuvers that should liquefy their crews. And they seem to enjoy combat rather than fear it. Impossible. No species develops such traits without being destroyed by their own aggression. Yes, Admiral. That's what our scientists say as well. 50 light-years away, Captain Sung-min commanded the destroyer Resilient as it patrolled the outer edge of human space. His crew had been monitoring Krek's communications for weeks, watching the aliens gather their forces. "Captain," reported Communications Officer Da-un, "we're detecting a large Krek's fleet moving in our direction, at least 200 ships." Sung-min studied the sensor readings. The Krek's formation was perfect, disciplined, and completely predictable. They moved like they expected their enemies to fight according to some universal rule book. "Commander Yun-woo, what do you think?" His tactical officer grinned. "I think they're about to learn that humans don't read rule books." The first contact between the main Krek's fleet and human forces came at the edge of the Titan system. The Krek's expected to find a small force of the strange ships they had heard about. Instead, they found empty space. "Admiral," reported the fleet's sensor officer, "there are no enemy ships in this system." "Impossible. Our intelligence clearly indicated activity here." "Yes, sir, but the system appears to be uninhabited. There are some asteroids and a few small moons, but no ships." Admiral Vexto frowned. No species abandoned a system when faced with superior force. They either fought or surrendered. This behavior made no sense. "Begin systematic search of the entire system. If they're hiding, we'll find them." The Krek's fleet spread out in a careful search pattern. Their ships moved slowly through the system, scanning every asteroid and moon. It was exactly what Captain Sung-min had hoped they would do. The Resilient hung motionless against the surface of a large asteroid, its hull camouflaged and engines silent. Around it, a dozen other human ships waited in similar hiding places. They had been in position for 6 hours, their crews patient as hunters. "Krek's destroyer approaching our position," whispered Navigator So Young. "Range 50,000 kilometers and closing." Sung-min watched the alien ship move past them, its sensors scanning space in a predictable pattern. The Krek's were good at finding enemies who wanted to be found. They were not good at finding enemies who had learned to hunt predators on the most dangerous world in the galaxy. "All ships," Sung-min transmitted on a tight beam, "execute Shadow Strike." The human fleet came alive in the span of 5 seconds. Ships that had been invisible suddenly appeared around isolated Krek's vessels. The aliens found themselves facing enemies at point-blank range, with no time to maneuver or call for help. The Resilient emerged from behind its asteroid like a shark rising from deep water. Engineer Kyung-soo had modified their weapons for maximum effect at close range. The Krek's destroyer never knew what hit it. "That's one," Yun-woo reported calmly. Across the system, the pattern repeated. Human ships appeared from impossible hiding places, struck fast and hard, then vanished back into the asteroid field. The Krek's formation, spread out for searching, found itself picked apart, ship by ship. Admiral Vex, to watch his carefully organized fleet dissolve into chaos. "How are they doing this? Where are they coming from?" "Unknown, Admiral. Our sensors show them appearing from areas we've already searched. It's as if they can hide inside solid rock. No species has that technology." "No, sir, but they're doing it anyway." The human tactics seemed impossible by every standard of galactic warfare. Ships appeared from asteroid fields that should have crushed them. Crews performed maneuvers in environments that should have killed them, and they coordinated attacks through sensor interference that should have made communication impossible. Meanwhile, back in human space, cultural specialist Minho was working with the Veltari refugees to contact other oppressed species. Elder Nimra had provided access codes to the underground networks that connected resistance movements across the galaxy. "We're receiving responses," Communications Officer Jin Ah reported. "Dozens of them. Species that have been hiding from the Krek's for years." The messages painted a picture of a galaxy living in fear. Entire civilizations had gone into hiding rather than face Krek's expansion. Others had submitted to slavery rather than face extinction. But now, word was spreading about the humans who fought back. "They want to know if we're real," Jinnah continued. "Some of them think it's a Krek's trick to flush out resistance cells." Fleet Admiral Dong-sik studied the incoming messages. Each one represented species that had given up hope of freedom, people who had resigned themselves to living under Krek's rule forever. "Send them proof," he decided. "Transmit recordings of our battle with the Krek's fleet. Show them what humans can do." The recordings spread through the underground networks like wildfire. Footage of human ships performing impossible maneuvers, audio of human pilots laughing during combat. Evidence that someone was not only fighting the Krex Empire, but winning. On a dozen hidden worlds, resistance leaders watched the recordings in amazement. The humans fought like no species they had ever seen. They used tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. And they seemed to be enjoying themselves. Back in the Titan system, Admiral Vex-2 was facing the unthinkable. His fleet had lost over 30 ships to an enemy force that seemed to number less than 20 vessels. His perfect formation had been reduced to scattered groups of ships hiding behind their own defensive screens. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet." "Put it through." Captain Sung-min's image appeared on the main screen. He looked calm and confident, like someone who had just completed a training exercise rather than a desperate battle. "Admiral Vex-2, I believe. I'm Captain Sung-min of the United Earth Space Force. I wanted to thank you for the excellent combat. Practice. Your fleet fights exactly like our simulation programs predicted." Vex-2 stared at the human in disbelief. "You dare mock the Krex Empire?" "Not mocking, Admiral. Just observing. Your tactics are very predictable. Very civilized. That makes them easy to counter. We will destroy you all for this insult." Sung-min smiled. "You're welcome to try. But you might want to ask Commander Thex-Ka about how that worked out last time." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Vex-2 staring at an empty screen. Around him, his officers waited for orders that he didn't know how to give. How did you fight an enemy that treated impossible situations as routine challenges? As the Krex fleet retreated from the Titan system, they carried news that would shake the Empire to its core. For the first time in their expansion, they had encountered a species that not only resisted, but actually seemed to thrive on conflict. The age of Krex dominance was ending. The age of human resistance had begun, and across the galaxy, oppressed species began to whisper a word they had almost forgotten: hope. Word spread through the galaxy like a virus. The underground networks that connected oppressed peoples carried a message that seemed impossible. The Krex Empire was losing battles. Someone was fighting back and winning. On the hidden moon of Zerion 7, Resistance leader Toryi met with human representatives for the first time. The former Veltari military officer had been fighting a guerrilla war against the Krex for 3 years. He had never expected to meet warriors who actually enjoyed combat. "Your reputation precedes you," Toryi said to Captain Young-hee as she stepped off her transport ship. "My people thought the stories were exaggerated." Young-hee looked around the hidden base with interest. The Veltari had carved their headquarters inside an asteroid, safe from Krex sensors but barely livable by most standards. The air was thin, the gravity was weak, and radiation levels would kill most species within days. "Seems like a nice place," she said casually. "Reminds me of some mining stations back home." Toryi stared at her. "You find this environment pleasant?" "Well, it could use better lighting, and maybe some air recyclers. But it's not bad for a secret base." The meeting room contained representatives from 6 different species, all refugees from Krex expansion. They had gathered to hear the humans' proposal for coordinated resistance. Most had never seen a human before. "The plan is simple," Young-hee explained, activating a holographic display. "We hit them everywhere at once. While they're trying to figure out where we are, we free their prisoners and destroy their supply lines." An elderly representative from the aquatic Shenty spoke up. "The Krex have overwhelming numbers. Even if we coordinate our attacks, they can simply send more ships." "Numbers only matter if you can use them effectively," Young-hee replied. "The Krex fight like they expect their enemies to stand still and trade shots. We don't fight that way." "What way do you fight?" asked Toryi. Young-hee smiled. "Like everything in the universe is trying to kill us. Because where we come from, it usually is." The holographic display showed the Zerion system, where the Krex maintained a massive prison world. Thousands of political prisoners from dozens of species were held there under brutal conditions. It was heavily defended and considered impossible to assault. "This will be our first major operation," Young-hee continued. "We'll hit the prison world while simultaneously attacking Krex supply convoys in 12 other systems. They won't know which threat to respond to first." "The orbital defenses around Zerion are impenetrable," protested a Cathari engineer. "No ship can survive the approach." "No normal ship," agreed Young-hee. Good thing we're not normal. 3 days later, the assault began. Captain Jinwoo led the attack on Zarian 3, bringing his task force through the system's outer atmosphere, where the toxic gases would corrode any conventional ship within hours. "Orbital defenses are targeting us," reported pilot Subin. "They don't seem to understand why we're flying through a gas giant's atmosphere." Jinwoo studied the tactical display. The Krek's defense platforms were powerful, but they were designed to fight enemies who approached from empty space. They couldn't effectively target ships flying through the upper layers of a corrosive atmosphere. "Take us deeper into the gas clouds," he ordered. "Let's see how good their targeting systems are when they can't get a clear lock." The human ships dove deeper into the planet's atmosphere, using the toxic gases as camouflage. The Krek's defenders found themselves shooting at shadows and sensor ghosts, while the real targets approached from directions that should have been impossible. On the surface of Zarian 3, General Kex Ra commanded the prison complex. He had built his reputation on breaking the spirits of resistant prisoners. His facility had never been successfully attacked in 10 years of operation. "General," his aide reported, "Orbital Command reports unknown ships approaching through the atmosphere." "Through the atmosphere? That's impossible. The gases are lethal to all known species." "Yes, General, but the ships are definitely there." Kex-Ra studied the displays with growing unease. The approaching ships were using flight patterns that violated every principle of safe navigation. They seemed to be treating the deadly atmosphere as just another tactical advantage. "Scramble all fighters. If these fools want to die in our atmosphere, we'll help them." The Krek's fighters launched into the toxic gas clouds, expecting to find crippled enemy ships struggling to survive. Instead, they found human pilots who flew through corrosive atmosphere like it was clear space. Subin led her fighter squadron in a diving attack that used the planet's gravity well to build impossible speed. The Krek's pilots tried to follow, but found themselves overwhelmed by G-forces that would crush most living beings. "They're pulling maneuvers that should liquefy their crews," one Krek's pilot reported before his ship was destroyed. On the prison world's surface, alarms began wailing as human assault ships broke through the cloud cover. Marine Captain Seok Ho led the first wave of troops as they deployed into an environment that should have killed them in minutes. "Gravity here is 1.8 times Earth normal," he reported calmly. "Air is unbreathable. Radiation levels are high. Standard hostile environment." The Krek's guards who rushed to meet them found themselves facing soldiers who moved easily in crushing gravity while wearing minimal protective gear. The aliens' heavy environmental suits made them slow and clumsy compared to humans who treated toxic atmospheres as minor inconveniences. "How are they still alive?" one guard asked, as human soldiers advanced through poison gas that would kill most species instantly. "Must be some kind of technology," his commander replied, just before Seok Ho's squad overwhelmed their position. The prison break operation lasted 4 hours. Human soldiers moved through the facility like they owned it, freeing thousands of prisoners while fighting in conditions that would disable most armies. The Krek's defenders found themselves retreating from positions they had considered impregnable. As the last transport ships lifted off carrying liberated prisoners, Jinwoo's fleet prepared to leave the system. They had accomplished something that should have been impossible: a successful assault on a heavily defended world using tactics that no civilized species would attempt. "Mission complete," Jinwoo reported. "All prisoners evacuated, minimal casualties." "What about the Krek's defenders?" asked Fleet Admiral Dong-sik. "Still trying to figure out what happened. I don't think they believe their own sensor readings." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as human forces struck Krek's positions simultaneously. Supply convoys found themselves attacked by ships that appeared from asteroid fields. Military bases were assaulted by soldiers who fought effectively in environments that would kill most aliens. But the real impact wasn't military. It was psychological. For 50 years, the Krek's empire had ruled through fear. They had convinced the galaxy that resistance was hopeless, that submission was the only choice. Now, entire worlds watched recordings of human forces doing impossible things. On Krek's Prime, Emperor Vex Mor convened an emergency session of the High Command. Reports flooded in from across the empire. Simultaneous attacks, impossible tactics, and enemies who seemed to thrive in conditions that should destroy them. "How many ships do these humans possess?" the Emperor demanded. "Unknown. Your supremacy," Our intelligence estimates range from hundreds to thousands, and their homeworld? Still unlocated. They appear to operate from multiple bases throughout the Outer Rim. Vexmore studied the reports with growing anger. In 50 years of expansion, no species had caused such disruption to his empire. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Double our forces in every contested system. If these humans want a war, we'll give them one they cannot win. But in the depths of space, Captain Young He was reading intelligence reports that painted a different picture. The human raids had freed over 50,000 prisoners and destroyed enough Krek supplies to impact their expansion plans. More importantly, resistance groups across the galaxy were coming out of hiding. The Shenty have launched attacks in 3 systems, she reported to her senior staff. The Cathari have sabotaged 2 major Krek's shipyards. Even species that submitted years ago are starting to rebel. The Kreks will respond with overwhelming force, warned Toryi, who had joined the human fleet as a liaison officer. Let them, Young He replied. The harder they hit, the more species will realize that freedom is possible. And we've learned something important about Krek's tactics. What's that? They're bullies. They're very good at intimidating people who are afraid of them, but they don't know how to fight people who hit back. Across the galaxy, the impossible war continued. Human forces struck where they were least expected, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They fought in toxic atmospheres, navigated deadly asteroid fields, and performed maneuvers that should have been instantly fatal. And with each victory, the legend grew. The Deathworlders had joined the fight, and they were showing the galaxy that the Krek's empire could bleed. The war had lasted 6 months, and the Krek's empire was crumbling. What had begun as a minor rebellion had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Dozens of species that had submitted to Krek's rule were now fighting for freedom, inspired by human victories that seemed impossible. Emperor Vexmore stood in his throne room on Krek's Prime, watching reports of another defeat on the Rim worlds. His empire, built over 50 years of conquest, was falling apart. The humans had shown the galaxy that the Kreks could be beaten. Your Supremacy, his military advisor said carefully. Perhaps it is time to consider negotiations. Vexmore's eyes blazed with fury. The Krek's empire does not negotiate with inferior species. If these humans want total war, they shall have it. But Supremacy, our forces are spread thin. The rebellions will be crushed, all of them. Vexmore activated the main display, showing the fleet positions across the empire. Recall every ship to Krek's Prime. We end this here and now. Admiral In-Su commanded the human fleet from the bridge of the battleship Unconquerable. Intelligence reports showed massive Krek's fleet movements toward their homeworld. It was exactly what humanity had hoped for. They're pulling ships from every system, reported Intelligence Officer Ha Young. The Kreks are betting everything on one final battle. Good, In-Su replied. When bullies get desperate, they make mistakes. The human fleet wasn't alone. Ships from a dozen liberated species had joined them for the final assault. Veltari, cruisers flew alongside human destroyers. Shenty fighters escorted human bombers. The galaxy's oppressed peoples had united behind the Deathworlders who had shown them that freedom was possible. Fleet Admiral Dongsik sends his regards, Communications Officer Jin Ah reported. The 2nd and 3rd fleets are in position. We have them surrounded. In-Su studied the tactical display. Krek's Prime was the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. Orbital platforms, defense satellites, and the entire Krek's navy stood between them and the Emperor who had terrorized. Countless worlds, all ships, In-Su broadcast. This is where we end 50 years of tyranny. Today we show the galaxy that no empire is too big to fall. The Battle of Krek's Prime began at dawn on the planet's main continent. The Krek's defenders expected a conventional assault, enemy fleets trading shots at long range while maneuvering for advantage. They had prepared for the kind of battle that had served them well for half a century. Instead, they faced Captain Jun Ho, leading the first wave directly into Krek's Prime's upper atmosphere. His squadron dove through the planetary defense grid like bullets through paper, using the planet's own gravity to build speed that should have crushed their crews. Atmospheric entry at impossible velocity, reported the Krek's Orbital Control Center. How are their ships not burning up? Unknown. Heat shields must be beyond our technology. But it wasn't superior technology. It was superior evolution. Human ships were built to survive Earth's harsh environments. Diving through the atmosphere of an alien world was just another day at the office for crews who had grown up facing hurricanes and volcanic eruptions. Engineering specialist Mira coordinated the assault from her position aboard the cruiser Relentless. Her job was to identify weaknesses in the Krek's defensive grid and exploit them with tactics that no sane species would attempt. Orbital Platform 7 has a blind spot, she reported to Commander Sang-woo. If we approach through the planetary rings, we can get within ramming distance. Ramming distance? Sang-woo asked. Mira, we're not actually going to ram them, are we? Of course not. We're going to make them think we're going to ram them. Then we're going to do something even crazier. The human ships plunged into Krek's, Prime's ring system, navigating through a maze of ice and rock that would pulverize any normal vessel. The Krek's defenders watched in horror as enemy ships used the planetary rings as cover, appearing and disappearing among asteroids like ghosts. The planet's surface, Emperor Vexmore watched the battle with growing disbelief. His orbital defenses, designed to stop any conceivable attack, were being systematically destroyed by enemies who fought like they had nothing to lose. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 37 orbital platforms destroyed. 43 defense satellites eliminated. The enemy fleet is everywhere at once. Vexmore stared at the displays. The humans weren't fighting a battle. They were performing some kind of elaborate dance of destruction, moving through his defenses like they owned the system. The turning point came when Special Forces leader Haiwan led a boarding assault on the Krek's flagship. Her teams used assault pods to pierce the enemy ship's hull, then fought their way to the bridge through corridors filled with toxic gas. "Boarding parties have breached the hull," reported the Krek's admiral. "But that's impossible. Our internal defenses are lethal to all known species." "These aren't known species," his aide replied, watching human soldiers advance through poison gas that should have killed them instantly. "These are the Deathworlders." Haiwan and her teams moved through the ship like it was built for them. The Krek's had designed their vessels to be deadly to boarders, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, crushing gravity in some sections. For humans who had evolved on the most dangerous world in the galaxy, it was just an interesting challenge. "Bridge secured," Haiwan reported calmly. "The Krek's admiral would like to surrender." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human forces appeared in places they shouldn't be able to survive, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They fought in damaged ships with no life support. They operated in vacuum with minimal protection. They performed maneuvers that should have liquefied their crews. The Krek's fleet, built for conventional warfare against rational enemies, found itself completely outmatched by opponents who treated impossible situations as routine challenges. The last Krek's defenders fell back to the planet's surface. Emperor Vexmore made his final decision. If he couldn't win the battle, he would make the victory meaningless. His hand moved toward the planetary destruction device that would turn Krek's Prime into a radioactive wasteland. "If the Empire falls," he declared, "let it take our enemies with us." But Admiral In-Soo had anticipated this move. Human commandos had been infiltrating the planet's surface for hours, moving through environments that would stop most armies. When Vexmore reached for his ultimate weapon, he found it had already been destroyed. "Impossible," he whispered. "How did they get past our defenses?" The answer walked into his throne room in the form of Ambassador Ye Yun, flanked by human marines who looked like they had just finished a pleasant stroll rather than fighting their way through the most secure building in the Empire. "Your Supremacy," Ye Yun said politely. "I believe it's time to discuss terms." Vexmore stared at the human diplomat. She looked fragile compared to his species, but her eyes held the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. "What terms?" "You have destroyed my empire." "No," Yeun replied. "We've freed it. There's a difference." The formal surrender of the Krek's empire took place 3 days later. Representatives from dozens of liberated species gathered to witness the end of 50 years of tyranny. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, showing worlds that had lived in fear that freedom was possible. Yeun stood before the Galactic Assembly, addressing beings from hundreds of different worlds. Her words would be remembered for generations. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned that the strong protect the weak, not prey upon them. The universe is dangerous enough without us making it worse for each other. The Galactic Liberation Alliance was established with humanity as its first protector species. The Deathworlders, who had seemed like monsters to some, had proven to be the galaxy's greatest defenders. In the months that followed, human ships patrolled former Krex territory, helping rebuild shattered worlds and establishing trade routes that benefited everyone. The galaxy learned that the species from the impossible world fought not for conquest, but for the radical idea that all intelligent life deserved to live free. And in the depths of space, new human exploration fleets continued their mission of discovery. They had learned that the universe was full of wonders and horrors, friends and enemies, but they had also learned something else. No matter how dangerous the galaxy might be, humans would always be ready to face it together. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun, and somewhere in the vast cosmos, other species looked toward the stars and wondered what other impossible things might be possible now that they had seen what Deathworlders could accomplish when they set their minds to it.